This is VK3SL, a test transmission on 160 metres on the AM mode and also in the FM mode on 2 metres, a regular Friday night test transmission. Absolutely no entertainment intended, but I do use modulated sound for these tests. Noting that there was a QSO a little bit further down the band, I've moved up as far as I can possibly go. I hope there's no problem there if they decide to recommence. So that's the way of things. And yeah, this is VK3SL and back on board after a week of absence. I was away last week and it's been quite an eventful time. Lots of things happening. So we'll let some of the stories unfold as the tests go along this evening. So what do we do first? We'll have a listen to something from our ProZoot archive, strictly for purposes of tests, VK3SL.
Some church you can get me to, then we'll all be set, we two, and that'll be fine.
We just heard the music of Leo Reisman's orchestra with Lou Conrad vocaling from 1927. That was We Too. And technical comments in the spirit of Test Transmissions. What can I say? Very good ensemble playing, fantastic playing, and they make a very homogeneous sound. Always enjoyed the music of Leo Reisman. He's universally sounded very, very refined from his earliest recordings, such as that one, until the mid-30s. He actually played, his orchestra accompanied Fred Astaire in a number of the Fred Astaire Ginger Rogers films, as I recall. But yeah, good to hear a bit of Leo Reisman, care of Prozoot. Anyhow, so we've had a lot of things happening here. It has been quite a week. We had a film crew visiting this morning, and well, it's all about the moon tape. This open reel tape that was found in a second-hand shop local to here, and a couple of years ago, and it seems to have spawned some interest on in our mainstream media outlets in the face of the moon landing 50th anniversary celebration. So they seem to have gotten hold of this and traced me and wanting to ask some questions and understand a little bit more about its provenance. Well, yeah, I mean, there's not really a lot to it. It's all that material is available elsewhere on the net, but it just happens to be aggregated and presented as a continuum. So yes, that file, I think I'll feature that file next Friday night. So it's been up on YouTube for a while, and it's had some mild interest since the Herald Sun article, which came out yesterday in the black and white column, and today we had the Today Show come out and observed me putting the tape on a buyer machine. And it was quite theatrical because I put the tape on the buyer machine, and what happened? But the buyer machine chewed the tape up. Haha, triple play on a buyer machine is not a good idea, but they wanted authenticity, so we destroyed the source in the process. But it doesn't matter because it's been digitized anyhow. But yes, it was very theatrical. But so we ended up putting another tape on the machine and used overdubs, so it was all quite bizarre. Anyhow, all in the name of reality TV. Well, let's have a look. Oh yes, I also caught up this afternoon with a certain Mr. a certain luminary in the history of recording in Australia, Mr. AAV, and had spent the afternoon and a long interview, which I won't be able to play here, but it was quite interesting, a very interesting meeting. And I came home with a pile of transcription recordings and 78s, so that was all very good. And amongst those, there's a recording of Beryl Newell. Beryl Newell, that's a tongue twister. Beryl Newell, pianist. A recording made in Sydney in 1930, yes, and it features her on the piano and Des Tooley on the vocals. So we'll have a listen to Happy Feet from the King of Jazz, VK3SL.
Those happy feet, give them the low down beat and they begin dancing. I've got those 10 little tapping toes, and when they hear a tune I can't control my dancing heels to save my soul weary blues. Can't get into my shoes because my shoes refuse to ever go weary. I keep cheerful on an earful of music sweet, 'cause I've got happy feet.
Beryl Newell, and that was a parlophone record from 1930. Beryl Newell at the piano and Des Tooley vocal, recorded in Sydney. And I think I might turn that disc over, because that was pretty impressive playing. Some really on the beat, virtuosic, and good sense of style, sort of pianola style, I suppose. Let's hold this up to the microphonics and have a look. Glasses on. We'll see, this is one of those parlophones with the stroboscope across the along the side. Beryl Newell, piano solo, and the vocal chorus in this instance is by Des Tooley again. Very good. Recorded in Australia, written in small print in brackets underneath the at the bottom of the label. I haven't seen this record before, so it's nice to have it at hand. So let's put this one on the table and we'll have a listen to Ragamuffin Romeo. And I'm VK3SL, testing on 2 metres and 160 metres. Testing.
I'll tell to you about the love of someone who they call a ragamuffin Romeo. Sigh and wail as lovers do when thinking of his sweetie too, poor little ragamuffin Romeo. In dreams only they had ever met, and adored he'd away. Oh, so lonely for his Juliet, and then he would take his little sack and hit the road, picking rags at each abode. Poor little ragamuffin Romeo.
We heard the piano playing of Beryl Newell, and the vocals there was Des Tooley. Now, I thought Des Tooley was a man, but no, Des was a popular and well-known jazz singer, it says here on the IMDb. It says, well-known jazz singer in Australia in the 20s and 30s, and born Amy Ruwald, known as the Lady Baritone, and she performed and recorded with band leader Frank Hoglan, amongst others. Although a star in her homeland, she was hardly known abroad. Born in Sydney, learned piano, and also a piano teacher later in her life. There we go. Goes on and on. She started in vaudeville, made quite a few transcriptions in the 40s, well into the 40s, and I don't know when she passed away, but she, here we go, 1957. Oh no, that was her husband. Anyhow, there we have it. Des Tooley. Well, that's a bit of an awakening. Yeah, I'm pleased to have that record at hand. It's nice to hear something that's a bit upbeat and has a bit of Australian content. That's what it's all about, folks. Ticking the boxes. All right, let's have a listen to something that doesn't tick the boxes. Another Prozoot, Canadian Capers, Earl Burnett and his orchestra on one of those Hollywood variety records from 1930. This is VK3SL testing. Well, that was delightful. Nice to hear. Canadian Capers, Earl Burnett and his orchestra. Now, apparently, that's on a 33 transcription record from 1930, very early, and doesn't appear in any discography from what it says here. So that's interesting. So here we go. Prozoot's at it again, putting up really interesting selections with a fascinating background. So, yeah, great to hear that. All right, something else, and a test pressing of Fred Elizalde and his music is I never know how to pronounce this. Someone can help me. Elizalde. I always thought of Elizalde, but it's not. Elizalde and his music, Fred Elizalde and his music. And this is a test pressing, and it's a recording called Singapore Sorrows. Now, this band leader is of the highest order. His recordings really stand out in the British canon from that time. He had a very, very, very refined dance band, and he had a classical background, I think. I think he studied formally. I can give you a bit of a bio afterwards. But look, let's have a listen to this. It's a Singapore Sorrows, an unissued take, and this one's care of Mr. Nick Dello. So, yeah, we'll have a listen to this, and I'll need to fade the right thing. Yes, VK3SL testing on 160 and 2 meters, and streaming, of course. There's a streaming service. I haven't switched on the streaming service. I better do that straight away. VK3SL. Well, that was absolutely extraordinary. What an interesting arrangement, full of life, full of unusual gear changes. It sort of took the listener in all sorts of directions, very unpredictable, and I think that's what got the poor old Mr. Elizalde is into trouble. It sounds like he really struggled with the musical establishment at the time, and he sort of was... sort of seen more as a fringe player by some of the authorities while he was doing extraordinary things with early jazz in the late 20s. Now, that was a Fudd Livingston arrangement, but there's an interesting thing here. There's a trombone solo, and apparently, I'm just reading the brief here, that the trombone solo is actually Frank Coughlin, who ended up in Australia and had quite an influential on the Australian jazz scene in the 40s, 30s and 40s and onwards. So that's really quite significant. So we have an Australian connection with that one there. Now, I'm afraid I'm going to do what I sometimes do, and I'm going to listen again because I'll move myself into a deeper trance state and see if I can extract something else from that performance, because I found it thoroughly engaging. So, excuse me. And by the way, the streaming service is now up. I forgot to switch it on before, so probably no one even knows it's on because there's replays going 24/7. And then probably people think it's the same old builds. Well, it sort of is the same old builds. But I'm VK3SL. We're testing and we're listening to the music of Fred Elizalde and his music Singapore Sorrows, Take 2. Well, we heard a parlophone test pressing of Singapore Sorrows. And that was the music of Fred Elizalde and his orchestra, recorded in 1929, and the unmistakable bass saxophone playing of Adrian Rollini. And we heard Frank Coughlin on the trombone. And who else? Oh, yeah, there's a contentious issue about this. I've been reading about it. There's a Bixian-style trumpet player there in the texture, very Bixian, and they think it was a British player, I think this was recorded in London, a British player, Norman Payne, they think. But it could have been Chelsea Queasley. That probably means absolutely nothing to the listener, but the jazz historians are vexed about the provenance of that, the lineup. So, interesting stuff. But I enjoy hearing these obscurities which seem to be emerging. Really fascinating stuff when you think of the unissued takes are not that plentiful. Anyhow, something else, I'll play something else now that's not very plantable. In my meeting today, it was we spoke about lots of boutique record labels which existed in Melbourne in the 1940s and 50s, quite a few. A number of them were run by Mr. A when he was very young. And one of them was attached to the Musicians Union, and which is an interesting story in itself, and it featured sort of a number of union players. And this label is called Southern Cross, and it's actually a 78 record label, and I was actually given one, so I'll play that now. So this is a 78, recorded in Melbourne in the mid-1950s, early to mid-1950s, and it's a recording of Billy Hyde, the drummer. So Billy Hyde plays his own composition, which I think he calls, what does he call it? I think it's just drum something or other, drum techniques. Rudiments for percussion, it says on the label. So we'll hear that, and this also features members of the ABC Melbourne Show Band, and apparently this is the Musicians Union band, musician label, Southern Cross. So let's have a listen to it. 78 from 1953-ish.
That's what we're discussing. Rudiment for percussion, as beat on the drum.
Now single stroke and double two, they're the first two beats that you learn to do. Make 'em even and smooth with a steady beat. And here's where we start our rudimental feat. Cues by, they're easy enough. Just mix 'em up with a roll or a rough. We play single, double and triple two. Now pull up your drums and take a cue. Triplets by, they got a beat right enough. Play it nice and steady with a 5-stroke roll. Hard and fast and very loud, and fellas, you got something there that'll please the crowd. Take an ordinary single paradiddle and play it on the stick around about the middle. A 5-stroke roll and the triple paradiddle. Now let's get on with this rudimental riddle.
Rudiment for percussion, that's what we're discussing. Rudiment for percussion, as beat on the drum.
Now his roll's mighty smooth and he plays with a beat. He's what you might call a musician's treat. He hits 40s hard and piano's soft, and the band really rocks when he goes aloft. Now I've taken you partway through the rudimental book, but before you go, let's take one last look. Take all your rudiments, play them as one, and now we present
a man in rock.
Well, Rudiments for Percussion with Macduff Williams on the vocals with the ABC Melbourne Show Band, or members thereof, and Billy Hyde was the drummer. the technical man there, and of course these are technical missions here. We are testing and listening to the fine stickmanship of Mr. Billy Hyde, acknowledging his ability to play in all time measures and his virtuosic paradiddles that that Mr. Macduff sings about so eloquently. That was on the Southern Cross label. So I don't think I've seen that label before, so an interesting rarity there. Okay, well, before we shift gears into our next thing, I might just put on a little something from our sponsors.
Dubonnet, the famous French aperitif, is here. In cocktails or as a long drink, Dubonnet is delicious. Try it today. Dubonnet.
There we go. That's one of a series of ads which have been bestowed upon me, so we'll explore those further as well. Now, next thing is, I'm very pleased to say, on the Beyer turntable, I have a 16-inch transcription record, and it's I should take a photo because it's an authentic setup here. I've sort of got a bit of a authentic flavour about things at the moment, having the camera crew coming in and demanding things. Well, not demanding. They didn't demand anything, but there was certain desire for authenticity. So we did that with the tape player. Well, presently I have the Beyer turntable, the Nautifon arm, and an Nautifon A cartridge, all set up with a 16-inch transcription record, ready to play a variety music program from I think the late 40s, early 50s. And I think this must have been syndicated with 3KZ and its associated stations, I think, because it's got the Aspero brand as a signature. Features Bob Gibson, a whole variety of soloists. It's a little bit lame, but there's a nice, very politically incorrect song at the end. So this goes for about 10 minutes, 15, but listen to the song at the end because I think it's good. We have to have politically incorrect things. We've got to challenge our conventions, and no one in their right mind would put this last song on. So we'll wait for it, folks, and there's some really bad comedy in between. So a variety program, think from 3KZ. It's on a 16-inch transcription record, and we will see what happens.
A-S-P-R-O Aspro presents Star Night. Hear ye, we do proclaim the following bill of fare. Songs from Pam Corrigan, Jeff Brook, the Star Nighters.
Not forgetting your compere, Johnny McMahon.
Novelty from the virtuoso of the harmonica, Bruce Scurry. Comedy from the president of Laughs Unlimited, Max Reddy, with Stella Lamont and John Bohr. And guest comedian, Charlie Sherman. Music from the style band of the continent, Bob Gibson and his music for moderns. That's Aspro Star Night. Yes, it's Bob and the boys, all set to take the A train.
Johnny, look, I had an experience this afternoon you wouldn't read about it.
Go on, Maxie, what happened?
Look, I took my dog into a dog shop to buy a muzzle for him, and the man behind the counter insulted me. He refused to put a muzzle on my dog.
He did?
Johnny, if you'd have been in my place, what would you have done?
I'd have put it on myself.
Oh, then you'd have to buy another muzzle for the dog.
Hey, wait a minute, Maxie. You're not insinuating that I'm a dog, are you?
Oh, of course not, Johnny. How dare I? Your ears aren't big enough.
I can take it.
Oh, I'm glad of that.
Hey, what kind of a dog have you got? Is it a pom?
Oh, well, no, lad, it was born out here. Pom. Anyway, the dog reckons he's a pom, you know. My dog reckons he's a pom.
How do you know?
Well, it's always singing about itself.
Your dog does?
Yeah, he keeps singing, hallelujah, I'm a pom. Oh, he's a character. He's a funny dog, John. He never eats meat, though.
Go on, why not?
We never give him any. Anyway, I haven't seen you around lately. Where have you been?
Oh, as a matter of fact, Max, I've been away on my holidays.
On your holidays, eh? Where did you go to?
I went to the country and stayed at a very old manor house with gables on the roof.
Get away. Was Clark up there?
Gables, old boy, gables.
Oh, Gables. Oh.
There was only one thing wrong with the place, though, Maxie.
Yes?
Every night at 12 o'clock, a beautiful girl clad in a glorious gown of chiffon
Yes.
used to walk through the long grass. Oh, she was lovely. Her beautiful hair, her beautiful eyes, and her glorious Grecian shoulders. Are you following me?
Blimey, I'm miles ahead of you.
Well, this beautiful creature
Yes.
walked through the long grass right up the marble staircase into my room. So what did I do?
Don't tell me I'm too young.
I took my dressing gown from behind the door.
Yes.
I placed it around her shoulders.
They don't leave any yet. Now tell me the lot.
Just
Come on.
a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went and slept all night in the bathroom.
Oh.
Maxie, if you'd been in my position, what would you have done?
John, I'd have done exactly the same as you.
Good for you.
You beaut. I had a similar experience of that, you know, myself.
Oh, you did?
Look, I was staying in an old world fowl house with stables on the roof, see?
Gables.
Stables. The mare slept upstairs. And every night at midnight, about 4 o'clock in the morning, a beautiful girl clad in a gorgeous gown of chiffon.
Chiffon. Chiffon.
Well, I think it was off when I saw her. Look, Johnny, the grass was so long I couldn't see, but it doesn't matter. She was beautiful, Johnny. She had gorgeous hair, beautiful eyes, the both of them. Roman nose, Roman all over her face, and beautiful greasy shoulders.
Grecian shoulders.
Yes, that's right. Well, there she was walking through the long grass, so I grabbed a pair of scissors, rushed into the long grass, and stayed there all night.
What doing?
Cutting down the long grass.
What were you cutting down the long grass for?
I want to take it home to the wife.
What on earth would your wife want the grass for?
Oh, she eats like a horse. Haven't you ever seen her?
What a girl. She must be pretty big and healthy sort of a girl, though,
Well, as
Maxie.
a matter of fact, John, she's not. My wife is as thin as a rake.
Go on, you don't say.
Look, when we were courting one night, we were sitting in the lounge, and she said, Max, I think the light is too bright. I think I'll turn the gas down a bit.
Oh, you had gas then?
So she hopped up on a chair, and do you know, John, she was so thin, she slipped down the gas pipe.
She slipped through the gas pipe?
Yeah, so I raced into her mother and I said, Mom, Ethel's just slipped down the gas pipe. And her mother said, don't worry about that, Maxie. Just go out to the gas box and meet her.
Oh. Oh, Eula! Where are my clean shirts, dear?
I'll bring you one, Johnny darling. They've just been ironed. There you are, dear, nice and clean.
Clean? What are these blue and red streaks doing on a plain white shirt? Don't tell me you did it again.
Spoil the socks with the shirt. Yes, dear.
Oh, boy, are you dumb. Thank God you're beautiful. You can't have everything. It isn't in the books.
Each person has a fault or two.
That's quite right, I agree with you. You very seldom find both genius and good looks.
Now, for example, let's take you.
No, let's take you.
Why?
'Cause you're dumb,
Who, me?
but so beautiful.
Uh-huh.
So dumb, but so sweet. I'll bet you couldn't boil an egg without reading a book.
My mama said with eyes like mine I'd be crazy to cook. book.
Oh, you're so dumb.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, but so beautiful.
So dumb, it really hurts.
You're telling me. Why, your head's completely empty, chum.
But do you care if I am dumb?
Not as long as you're beautiful.
I'm sorry, I'm dumb.
Ah, forget it, kid.
But I'm glad I'm beautiful.
So am I.
Why am I so dumb, but so sweet?
I'll tell you. A peanut shell would hold more than your brain, I declare.
Are you incinerating that I'm not quite all there?
No, but you're plain dumb.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But so beautiful.
So dumb, it really hurts.
I'll say it hurts. I gaze upon that lovely dome and realize there's no one home, but gee, are you beautiful. Darling, you know, I don't know what to do with you. You take notice of every little thing I say.
Oh, dear, have I done something wrong again?
Well, no, not exactly. But when I was angry the other night and told you to go jump in the lake, I didn't mean you to take off your shoes and go wading in.
But I thought you said...
I know what you thought, darling, but I didn't mean it literally.
You didn't what, dear?
I didn't mean it.
Oh, you didn't want me to jump in the lake?
That's right, dear.
Then you weren't telling the truth.
No, dear, I wasn't telling the
Oh,
truth.
Johnny, that's bad. My mother told me to always tell the truth, and you tell me to tell the truth, and yet you don't tell the truth yourself. I think it's perfectly disgusting. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Look, forget it, will you? I give up. Oh, you're so dumb. Do you know you have total amnesia?
Well, thank you, darling.
Oh, you're so dumb. Why, look, you're driving me mad.
My mama says if I can't think of anything to say, just smile at all I'm in, my dear, and you'll get by that way.
You're not so dumb. Boy, you're beautiful. So dumb, it really hurts.
Well, if I'm dumb, why do I like Johnny McFarlane singing on the air?
What did you say?
I said if I'm dumb, why do I like your singing on the air?
Listen, there are people listening, honey. That's not fair.
Well, am I dumb?
No, darling.
Am I beautiful?
Oh, of course, dear. Well, I don't care if you're dumb as long as you're beautiful.
Well, that's poetry in motion. We heard there the music of Bob Gibson's orchestra, and the title on that transcription record is Lations, it says. Lations, and it's a part of a long series. I'll have to investigate further what the background is to that, but it's one of many here. I'll just take the needle off. It's one of those inside-outside plays. A lot of the transcriptions did have an inside start. But, yeah, anyhow, so it's good to have a bit more missions fodder to work with. So a bit of variety there with some very bad comedy. The band was quite good. The A-Train at the start, I thought they sounded great. Bob Gibson's band. Alrighty, well, I'll have to just bring up the playlist. What else has happened this week? We've heard vintage sounds. Yes, Mr. Hanna's been doing wonderful things, putting up incredible, interesting rarities, and one of them has blown my socks off. It's an orchestral piece. It's Beethoven's Carolian Overture. Carolian Overture, yes. Yes, and but interestingly, it's conducted by Pablo Casals, the great cellist, and he's conducting the London Symphony Orchestra in 1927. Now, we don't usually hear Casals conducting, and he did quite a bit at the very end of his life. And, yeah, the way he brings out the high drama in Beethoven's music, it's quite apparent, and it's exciting music. So we'll have a listen to this. It's on, I think it's 2 sides of a 12-inch record put up by Mr. Hanna. So, yes, we'll put on that on next. We move into our nostalgia realm. So, let's have a listen. Pablo Casals and the LSO from 1927, and I'm VK3SL Testing. Well, what wonderful dramatic poise we had there with Casals conducting the LSO in 1927, and you can even hear some of the hall ambience, the Queen's Hall in London, which sadly was bombed out of existence about 15 years after that was recorded. Fantastic venue. Wonderful piece. It's all about Mr. Cornelius and his mum. And Cornelius was a warlord. Oh no, he was invading Rome, and he had all his warlike intentions, and his mum was trying to talk him out of it. And her pleadings is that E flat major theme, the soft theme, and he is the big C minor, alpha male theme is his. So they're sort of reconciling throughout the piece, and at the end, I think he kills himself because he can't. The army is already advancing and he wants to withdraw, but he has to maintain his stance. He doesn't want to because his mum's told him not to, and the only way to do it is to end his life. So in a nutshell, that's the tragedy Corellian. I think it's who's it written by? Heinrich Joseph von Collin. It's a play written in 1804, and Mr. Beethoven wrote the incidental music for it. I was reading also that it was premiered at a private concert with the Symphony No. 4 and Piano Concerto No. 4. Now, what a concert that would have been. What a long concert that would have been. Anyhow, it's great to hear Casals conducting. He really had a great architectural sense, great global concept of the piece, and the drama is, I think, superbly captured in that performance. There's another really great performance of the Corellian Overture with Furtwängler. We'll dig that one up for another night. So, yeah, good to hear that. And another historic thing. There's something else that just cropped up. Everyone who listens to these missions knows that I'm a great fan of George Enescu, great composer, Romanian composer, violinist, pianist, and musicologist. He had probably the greatest ear ever recorded. He could hear long works once and reproduce them perfectly. Very few people in history had that ability, but Mr. Enescu was very modest about that skill. But he was a man of great introspection and great humility. Anyhow, a recording surfaced of him playing the piano, and he's actually accompanying a violist called Radulescu, a viola player, and they're both playing Enescu's concert piece for viola. And this is a piece I really love. I know this piece well. I've listened to it. I've got friends who play it, and I've heard a lot. But here's a recording of it being performed with Mr. Radulescu, but with Enescu accompanying him, the composer accompanying the viola player. So we hear Enescu on the piano, and it's superb, it's beautiful. And, he was a supreme pianist as well as a violin player, as well as a composer. I can't stop raving about Enescu. But let's have a listen to this, and it's a new one for me. I've only just heard it once, and I think it's worth presenting. So this is VK3SL, testing, of course, and we now listen to the music of Enescu. Bravo. That was Enescu's concert piece for viola with violas called Mr. Alexandre Radulescu was the viola player, and Enescu himself, the composer, playing the piano. Now, Enescu died in 55, so I presume it's a few years. I don't think he did much in the last couple of years of his life, so probably early 50s, late 40s, but interesting to hear. And I'd never heard that recording before, and it's exciting to see new things materialising. So, yeah, such a wonderful piece. It's an early work of Enescu's. He wrote that, I think, when he was still studying. He wrote a series of concert pieces for different instruments. He wrote one for flute and a concert piece for trumpet as well. Might feature that another week. They're beautiful works. So, yeah, that's exciting to hear. So now I was thinking, I've been in Sydney last week. Had a really good week in Sydney. Had lots of music and travelled around. I hadn't been to Sydney since 1977. I was quite young in 1977, but hadn't been there since then, so it's changed quite a bit. And went to the Sydney Opera House and heard the Henry do his concert there, his solo performance. That was pretty exciting. What else? Oh, yes, we went to... had a look around of the Darling Harbour. I went to the Maritime Museum. I thought that was great. I had a look through the submarine, the Oberon. That was amazing. And a number of other ships there. Spent a whole day there. I like that. Oh, yes, a highlight was the AWA building. Yes, I found the AWA building in King Street, was it? Anyhow, it was there, and I did have a look, and I looked at the AWA emblem, and I went inside and saw the frieze in the wall and the radio sparks coming out of the emblem, that sign of radio for eternity. And I've just had a bit of a look around this room, and there are none less than nine I can count, AWA emblems on bits of junk equipment in this room. So quite a strong representation of AWA in this booth here. So, yeah, so that's it. AWA, it's good to see it still there. Still has the big tower on top. It's all dwarfed by other skyscrapers, but it's a majestic building, and it's it does look very impressive. The tower's painted white. So that was pretty cool. All right, let's see what's next. I thought, look, it'd be nice to, at this point, to do something a bit different and hear some works for solo instruments by Benjamin Britten. Benjamin Britten wrote in many different styles, many different genres, but one thing he did specialise in was writing for solo instruments playing on their own with no accompaniment at all, and he really understood the way a single voice could carry a piece. It's remarkable. And he wrote a lot of music for instruments on their own. He wrote 3 cello sonatas, which are completely solo, and he wrote the amazing Metamorphoses for oboe, and his Serenade for tenor, horn and strings has this remarkable horn solo at the start. So we might start with that. We'll just hear that it's quite short, the horn solo. It's very beautiful. Uses a lot of natural harmonics, and the whole Serenade's an amazing piece. It's just a work that I really should play, but it's quite long. I remember I had to give a lecture, I had to give a talk on this piece at uni, and I brought in the 78s of Benjamin Britten and Peter Pears and Dennis Brain playing it, and a wind-up gramophone, and played the original to accompany my talk. So just a value add to it. That was back at uni. And those 78s are still here on the shelf somewhere. Might dig them up. But look, we'll just hear the very, very beginning of this work, just the solo for horn. It's hauntingly beautiful, and as I said, it uses the natural harmonics of the horn. I don't think it uses any valves. And so it sort of sounds out of tune in one sense, but it's deliberately so. It's just the natural harmonic series doesn't work perfectly, and but it has its own character and evocation. So yeah, we'll start with that, and then I'll sort of talk through a couple of other small offerings after that. So let's have a listen to Benjamin Britten's Serenade for tenor, horn and strings, but we'll just hear the very first movement for horn alone. And I don't know, just picked someone offline. I think it's Radovan Vlatkovic is the horn player in this instance. VK3SL testing. And we'll leave it at that. The first movement is so beautiful, but we'll carry on and play the whole work another time. That was the horn solo from Britten Serenade for tenor, horn and strings, opus 31. A work he wrote in the 1940s. Okay, we'll now listen to the maybe just a couple of Britten's 6 Metamorphoses After Ovid, written for oboe, solo oboe. And I won't say too much about this. I'll let the music speak for itself. It's very evocative, and you hear the natural character of the oboe shine through. So we hear Liang Wang, the principal oboe of the New York Phil, in this instance. I'm VK3SL testing. Yeah, I find the sound of the oboe utterly mesmerising. It's wonderful, and a great way to test distortion in transmitters as well. And interesting to look at on the crow, seeing the wave patterns there. Very pure, beautiful playing. And we heard 3 of the Britten's 6 Metamorphoses After Ovid, written for solo oboe, played by Liang Wang. We heard Pan and Phaeton and Niobe. And we'll listen to the other 3 another time. But so we're just having an evening of listening to some of Benjamin Britten's solo works for instrumental soloists. We'll go to one of the cello sonatas now. We'll have to listen to Britten's Suite No. 1 for solo cello, opus 72. I think this was written for Rostropovich. I've played some of this, I remember, years ago. But we'll have a listen to a part of it. I'll find somewhere convenient to fade so it doesn't go for too long, because these are long works. But this is very dramatic and very powerful as well. So, for solo cello, Britten's Suite No. 1, and I'm VK3SL testing. We heard the young Australian cellist Richard Narroway playing the first movement from Britten's Suite No. 1 for solo cello, Opus 72. And a very powerful performance, very eloquent. He really made the cello speak as well as sing. It's great to hear young players play with that sort of authority. Really enjoyed his playing. He's put a lot of stuff on YouTube, Richard Narroway. He's played most of the Piatti Caprices and put them up as study exercises and talks about how to practice. It's a wonderful it's a ready resource, great ready resource, his YouTube offerings, something I refer to quite a bit, but I hadn't heard that one before. I did a bit of a look around for solo material. Next thing is a suite for harp, Opus 83. So we'll hear some solo harp now, an instrument you don't hear a lot of. This is, again, it's very beautiful and it's got a very different character, and you can hear the way Britten embraces the natural qualities of the instrument. Brooding quality of the cello was exploited before. Now we'll hear the wonderful lyricism and textures of what can be had with a solo harp. So let's have a listen. VK3SL, I'm testing. Yeah, we just heard a selection from Benjamin Britten's Suite for Harp, Opus 83. We finished with Nocturne. Before that, the Toccata. And there's a first movement as well. I think that was an overture. Yeah, so good to hear a solo work for harp played by Katrin Finch. And I don't know anything about her, but I thought it was a beautiful, very spacious performance, especially that last one, that Nocturne. It's beautiful. Well, that's probably a nice sort of penultimate piece, I think. I think I'll wind up shortly, but before doing so, I will cue up this last track and tell you a little bit about a young soprano, a Czech soprano. Well, I think she's Slavic, and she's making quite an impression on the young talent sort of scene. I think she's studying at the moment, but she appeared about 3 years ago as a 13-year-old, I think, or 13 or 14, singing grand opera, and sort of astonished everybody. She's most beautiful voice. Anyhow, there's quite a lot of her material, and I've only just discovered her myself, and I think she's incredible. Her name is Patricia Janekova. It's Janeckova, Patricia Janekova. And so we'll hear her. She's a teenager, and it's incredible to hear someone sing with this much power and I don't know, she's maturity in voice. She's probably got an incredible potential. So I hope that she's schooled well. I noticed there hasn't been much on YouTube in the last year, and I think she's probably studying intensely and not concertizing as much, but her voice is really well formed. So it's a beautiful way to finish. She's amazing. So we'll hear her sing a Mozart aria from the Marriage of Figaro. It's Voce Sapete, and so we'll hear Patricia Janekova, and I'm VK3SL, and what else can I say? Oh yes, I will listen back afterwards in case there's anyone there. And going to the fest tomorrow. What else? Don't think there's anything else. I think I should be back Friday, all being well, next Friday. We'll see how things go. And thank you for hanging around this long if you've done so. This is VK3SL.